Welcome back to SSL Classic here, sponsored by Jin Air. I am Wolf, with me is Rapid. We're coming back every week, every Thursday for Best of Ones here in our new round robin stage. How are you feeling this evening?
Almost always for Best of Ones. Tonight we're only going to have 3 Best of Ones, and that is because the Terran player Light unfortunately has some health concerns, so he will not be playing here tonight. So just 3 Best of Ones tonight. It's going to be a quick night, but you'll still get your weekly fix of SSL Brood War.
That's right. So with Light's withdrawal, Sulky will be awarded 1 free win, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as we look at the matches and results screens and things like that. But still going to be a great night of Brood War. I feel like, oh, look at you, the master of hydraulics over there.
It's true, man. Got it on lock. I can cast and lower myself to an appropriate height.
You're like the last airbender or something. I don't know.
I'm a seat bender, man. I just like lower myself. I actually didn't touch the seat itself. I just like shrank down further in the seat.
Yeah.
So I actually don't have legs. Nobody's ever seen me on air with legs. You can't prove anything.
There may be photo evidence of the contrary out there somewhere, Rapid.
It's fake news, man.
So I did want to bring us back in for a moment. That tonight's matches should be a little bit longer than the matches that we had last week, despite the fact that we will only be having 3 games tonight. I still feel like the overall broadcast length should theoretically be longer with the 2 all-in games that we had in the ZVZ and the PVT, which we'll talk obviously more about as we get further into the games. But if you're not used to watching Brood War, tell your friends about this. It's coming on every week. Of course, there's the ASL going on over at Africa as well. So this is going to be happening more regular in Korea. StarCraft Remastered has been announced. The rumors were true. Brood War HD was in fact coming. It has came, at least in terms of announcements, but it'll be released this summer. But even before that, we're continuing on. And speaking of which, we are on patch 1.18 today. So our last week's matches were played on the normal live patch 1.16, but with the 1.18 patch being pushed live earlier today, now all the players are playing on it, and we obviously have LAN and things like that, but we're updating the client. So there will actually be the new UI, and this will be the first televised match of Brood War ever played on 1.18, and will also be the first time we've ever seen a different countdown screen going into the game.
How does it work? Does it make the same noises as it always does? I don't know. I know at least for me, along with things like the old dial-up modem noises, the loading sound for StarCraft Brood War is just one of those therapeutic noises I could just always hear in my head, and it's just so beautiful. So this is going to be our first day on the new patch. So let's go ahead and talk about the matchups that we'll be seeing today. Of course, Sulky already being awarded his walkover win over Light, who cannot make it due to health concerns. That's what the Korean says right down below there. And everything else is our matchups. Mind versus Rain to start things off. Hero versus Free next, and Effort versus Sock to finish our night.
I feel like the highlight matchup of the evening is our very first one, Mind versus Rain, the clash of macro players, and I think that despite the fact that we're going to a map, Neo Medusa, that's not known for super late game, but these 2 players' play styles will definitely head towards that direction.
Right, and we did get to see Rain play a PVT already in our first week, but I don't think it was very standard by any means. He was the Protoss in that PVT that you talked about being such a good rush, and the wall that he ran into was a little bit wacky, and I think we touched on that last week. But this time around, we get to see him face off against Mind, who I would say is probably favored to be the strongest Terran player in the SSL Classic this season.
Definitely. Sock already defeated Free last week, so he's got to win in that matchup. Historically, we talked about how he has been favored against Free specifically in the most recent past. And both these players, Mind and Rain, that we start off with, will be, they're very conservative players in terms of expanding. You know, what we saw from Light last week, where he went for the CC first, despite the problem that he had in terms of the map positioning, whereas Marine would spawn on the outside of his wall. I don't think we're going to see that kind of risk, that kind of CC first, especially not a Medusa from Mind.
Absolutely. And so we talked about how both of these first 2 players are very sort of macro-focused. We got a chance to see Rain play contrary to that style and go for an early rush, whereas Mind was the player who just held back, solidly got his natural expansion up, and then pushed out and killed Free, who got a little bit too greedy. So we'll get a chance to see how they face off against each other, starting off with our first player, Mind, who you can see there took a win over Sulky, but of course, he's going to have a different matchup here tonight, so we'll get a chance to see exactly how he fares.
Mind a great Terran player who never really received notoriety in the West, I feel, for how good he always was. You know, he's never Flash, right? Not a Nada, right? Or a Boxer or an Oov, but a great player who was always on the cusp of being top tier and just never quite reached it. You know, several times semifinalist. And this guy is 1-0, as you mentioned, taking the win over over Sulky in that last game with the Vulture drop. He ended up having a tough defense against Sulky's counter harassment for the 1 Barracks proxy. But I think we're going to be seeing a longer game out of this Terran against his opponent, Rain. Much more accomplished in StarCraft 2, but in Brood War was getting to be top tier on SKT under the ID Sun at the end of his Brood War career.
But then the weather changed. And along with his name, he changed to Rain, was one of the best StarCraft 2 players ever to grace the scene, transcended to watching that game, and now he's coming back into Brood War, and he's just been very, very impressive if you want to find a role model. Rain is a great one, player to come back to Brood War from StarCraft 2 if you're looking to make the same transition yourself. Well, here's a guy that does it very, very well, and he'll be going up against a player who, like you said, in Mind, definitely showed a lot of promise, and for one glorious year was one of, if not the best Terran players, just coming out with the most incredibly intelligent playstyles you've ever seen. So we'll see how he faces off against Rain in our first match of tonight.
Our sponsor, Jin Air. Welcome to Neo Medusa. In the bottom here in white is, of course, the Terran Mind. And his opponent will be spawning to the top left of this 3-player map in teal. So 2 things to note right away that are exciting about this new UI. You will see the supply counts, which is unheard of in Brewer to have a persisting supply count shown. We've seen NBC Games show the unit counting station, going to be doing that occasionally as well. Occasionally, but not usually the entire game long. But what's more interesting, and actually pretty exciting to watch for the viewers, is you'll notice this bouncing square on the minimap. And what that actually is Rain's first-person view, exactly what he's looking at in real time. So when you see it jumping across the screen like that, it's because he's spamming his vision hotkey, his camera hotkey that he's set to that location where he will place his natural expansion over and over again. So that's a new element of the eye. So when you see the teal box on the minimap, that's actually the location that Rain is looking at in real time. And then, of course, the white box will be where Mind is looking.
And so what's really cool about this, for a lot of new players, maybe you know about Brood War already, but even for experienced Brood War players, this is a way that we can both watch the game as observers, but also keep an eye on what the players are doing. I'm told this means go in Canadian.
No, I think he's just a Canadian, but...
Well, I was going to say that's actually Korean, not Canadian, but good for you, man. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our maps for tonight. This map will be Neo Medusa, or just Medusa. It's version 2.2. Essentially, what was changed is that now there are buildable spaces in the middle of the map, but like you saw a probe or SCV already doing there are these little, I call them Masasi temples just because I'm a giant nerd, but you can mine out these minerals here, and what that does is it makes it impossible for enemy workers to glitch through the mineral patches and through those stacked Protoss temples. Now, there's 10 temples stacked on top of each other. They have 1,500 HP, so unless you just want to attack them single target forever, you need splash damage to break them down, and what do you get for that? Well, it leads to a backdoor entrance to the main base. So
I mean, this is basically what Dustin Brower envisioned when he created backdoor rocks, you know, back in the Wings of Liberty beta, and everyone found out about, you know, how tough it is to hold a 4-gate when the rocks go down. But obviously it's a lot tougher in this case to break through the rocks. A Vulture can also glitch through the temple using an SCV and a supply depot, so the probe will need to eventually go and deal with those mineral patches. Rain will, if he wants to, you know, be worry-free in terms of Vulture. So we've talked a lot about the map. We've talked a lot about the UI. Looks to be a 2-gate opening here for Rain. And for his opponent in Mind, it's going to be a faster factory opening. It's a safer opening here coming out, as he will scout the Nexus now coming in. And it's a skipped Zealot build. He's going just straight into Double Dragoon.
Yep. Yeah, so there are a couple of interesting things about this map. This is Neo Medusa. It's the only map that we'll be playing on today. There are 5 maps. Each player gets to ban one, and then out of the 3 remaining, one is randomly chosen. So today, we get a day full of nothing but Neo Medusa, which is going to be cool because you guys will get a chance to really get reacquainted with the map. As far as I know, this map has not been played in any offline tournaments recently.
It's been a long time.
But in online tournaments, there have been a few that have highlighted this map. It's a 3-player map, and so you'll know by scouting whether or not, exactly where your opponent is. Even if you don't scout him, you'll see where he is. And so both players have knowledge of the other. The first Vulture coming out, though, actually misses the scouting Zealot, and that is actually going to spell trouble in Rain's main.
Yeah, and he didn't skip the Zealot, as I actually previously had thought. The SCV is able to identify this, though, and he's going to actually look to repair this a little bit to get some more kills. Rain is going to go for the surround here, but he goes up onto the high ground. His base does actually have a ramp where you can get onto the high ground behind the mineral line.
Yeah, and the Dragoon actually missing a couple of those high ground shots will allow the Vulture to try to micro his way back out of here. Now, he won't be able to make it through the temples on the other end, but he will be able to turn back around. Last Dragoon shot doesn't come out.
It looks like he will finish this off. One more probe should go down.
Oh my god, the bonus kill on that probe. Those are Trader Dragoons, man.
So he killed a lot of probes with this. He has the CC coming up behind this in his backdoor expansion, as you can see here. So he's going to have that safely up and running. As we see, the Dragoon range is spinning. The problem, of course, now for Mind immediately will be the defense of these Dragoons that are coming across. He is researching siege mode. You should have 2 tanks at the ready. So I say it's a problem, but it's the next issue to deal with, and he is set up, in fact, to deal with that as the Dragoons come across the map. The Marine just checking to make sure nothing funky is going around. Did deny probes earlier. He's stuck on the outside of that barracks right now, which is why he's not coming in for safety. And we're going to see this attack commence. The Zealot comes into spot to see if there are siege tanks. Will take a bunch of hit point damage, nearly getting taken out there. Sees that there is at least one. I don't know if he saw the second one or not.
Yeah, and so sometimes in PvT you'll see the faster Dragoons come and siege a bunker at the front of the Terran player's expansion. This is sort of the other version of that, where the Protoss, like you said, skips those early early aggression. But now here is a Stargate coming way out of the line of sight. That's going to be out of range of any scans if Mind throws those down. Nice hiding of the Zealot, too, there by Rain.
Yeah, he wants to see if there's a third base coming up. He may even try to occasionally check to see if the barracks is lifted to go for a deeper scout there.
Right.
But this is likely going to be for hidden carrier tech coming out from Rain. It's not a scout rush, guys, so...
I mean, okay, so, yeah, hidden carrier is definitely possible. He could also go for, like, a 2-base Arbiter, but that would be, I think, a little bit less common. Either way, going Stargate off 2 bases is not a build that holds up well under like heavy pressure. Neo Medusa is a map where Terran players can actually go for a relatively fast 3rd base because it's siegeable from the high ground, so they can just seize up a bunch of tanks and take it a little bit more quickly. So if that is the build that that Mind decides to go for, then Rain could really catch him off guard. I didn't see whether or not Mind was building a command center there, but I'm guessing he's probably not. And there's the Fleet Beacon.
Yeah, the Fleet Beacon's coming up, so of course this is going to be 2 Stargate carriers. He's committing quite heavily, but you can't really... You have to have 2 Stargates to have enough carriers quickly enough to actually make a difference. Notice the positioning of the missile turrets here for Mind. He's prepared for any sort of frontal attack in terms of shuttle drops on top of his tanks. He has this turret back in the back of his base. He actually has several, as you can see here. So he's very well protected against shuttles, but this also gives him the added protection of dealing with small carrier counts. He built the armory already. He's not actually researching upgrades right now, but he will be able to produce Goliaths as soon as he scouts this. Speaking of scouting, he is getting that armory a little bit late since he went 3C, or the Academy. So he went 3CC before the Academy, but he will have triple scans once that's done, once he completes his ComSat scanners. That's going to give him the potential to attempt to scout this before it's coming. But because he went for the quick 3rd CC, he has no idea about this just yet. He's completely in the dark.
And so you'll notice that there's no He's not going to have any scans. He's also not going to really have any Goliaths. Even if you do have Goliaths, if they're not upgraded with Charon boosters, which give them the extra range on their anti-air attacks, they're really just not that much of a threat to carriers. They'll be able to hit the interceptors, but I mean that's exactly what you want for carriers. They'll never be able to actually kill the carriers themselves, which are also really good on this map because when it comes to sieging that natural expansion, there's a huge area of untargetable, or not untargetable, but I guess inaccessible by ground terrain there. So great place to park the carriers and then maneuver them out of danger.
And that's going to be the name of the game, the micro that we're going to see. How much value he gets before the Terran knows about it, and then after the Terran knows how much he micros in order to make this extra effective. Obviously going to be researching the additional cargo space for the interceptors right now, and will have the first carrier out fairly soon as additional factories are being added here. So this is the kind of thing that Mind has right now, is he doesn't have a lot of knowledge of this. Obviously, he doesn't have the additional factories on one factory right now, but he's making additional ones, so he's about to have a ton of them.
What you just saw there on the mini map is, I believe, the white square, which is Mind, actually did hover over, I think, where the carriers, right to the side of where the carriers were. So I think he saw the fleet beacon, but he might not have seen the carriers themselves. So I think he will be aware of this, but we'll see what he switches as far as production to.
He's not, okay, now he's making likely a Goliath here. We'll see if that's actually a Vulture or not. Despite the fact that we have resources, I'm not really looking at them all too much. And we don't have production tabs in this game, and I hope we never do, but that's not everyone's opinion. But the point is, we'll see in just a moment if he has realized. If he has, he will absolutely, without a doubt, be making Goliaths. But it is, in fact, Vultures, as the Korean commentators just shouted about. So he does not know, but he is going to push out across the map right now.
So I think when I was seeing Mind's view there, the box for what he could see was just slightly below where that fleet beacon was. So I'm guessing he just barely missed that with the scan. Either way, this is going to spell disaster. He should know by seeing only Dragoons there that maybe something's a little bit weird, and very soon the jig will, as they say, be up, Wolf. Okay, and
he scans the Dragoons retreating here, and he's going to actually continue the push. But if he pushes too far out, he will be trapped and caught, between a rock and a hard place. So the carrier's preventing his retreat, and he won't be able to break through the front.
And
he shows the carriers no anti-air whatsoever. He only has a few SCVs.
This is disastrous.
This may just be game over. He can't even retreat. He can't even siege up. He's going to kite back.
It absolutely will be, Wolf. This is game over. This is the best case scenario for hidden carrier tech, when the Terran player pushes out with no anti-air and he just loses everything. Now, back in Mind's base, he will be desperately trying to switch over and come out with as many Goliaths as he can. So there are the first 4, but if these get taken out and they are unprotected, then this is just really going to be the worst case scenario.
Good scans here, actually, though, and good targeting by Mind. He's going to get one of these carriers, does take it down, looks for the second one, going to take out some of its hit points, but of course these are going to be cornered and killed by the Protoss army. But all those expensive units, he lost to a misrallied tank here, looks to be caught. But with all those expensive units he just lost, and the amount of gateway production Rain now has to kind of supplement this carrier army, if he makes too many Goliaths, that's also a problem, because the Goliaths can't fight against this gateway army, so he needs to supplement that with the siege tanks. It's a tough balance to make, but when you're behind, it's a lot tougher.
Yeah, so this is the moment. This is the time to strike. Right now, there's only really one carrier. A really, really clutch move there by Mind to snipe one of the carriers and really mitigate this number of interceptors.
I think this is just GG, because he does not have enough siege tanks. He's been making purely Goliaths. He has one back there. There's so many Dragoons pushing through. Just targeting the siege tanks down with these carriers. Here come the rest of the Zealots. Doesn't look like they have the Zealot speed upgrade, the Zealot legs upgrade, but it doesn't matter. Just has too much Protoss army ripping through here.
Now, Mind is macroing off of 6 factories, but GG, it's just not enough. Very, very well done there by Rain to hide that carrier tech, and a little bit unlucky on that scan, which just barely missed the fleet beacon. Mind did not react in time, and Rain takes another dominant victory in the SSL Classic.
Well, Rain has been sneaky 2 games in a row. It was the Zealot rally to kill Light when he went for the CC
or Sulky. Or no, that was Light.
Yeah, and then in the second game now in the same matchup, he wins it on Medusa with hidden carrier tech. Attacks there and sees the army moving out, catches it in the middle of the map, and just smashes it there. And that's all it takes, as you said. You move out across the map. This is the perfect scenario for the Protoss. There's no anti-air.
Yeah.
The tanks can neither attack nor retreat, and they just all die. What you saw Mine do there was try to kite with his tanks in tank mode to try to take as much Protoss of the army, Protoss army with him as he could, as he lost his entire army. So he did kite and kill a few Zealots, kill a few Dragoons there. But that was really it. And then after that, the attack came. The Zealots didn't even have the leg enhancement upgrade, but it did not matter.
Yeah, and this is like kind of a don't try this at home kind of idea, because if you do go 2-base carrier and you get scanned, then Terran's just like, oh, well, I'll just build more Goliaths than you have interceptors, and at that point, well, your carrier tech, which takes all of your gas early on and a ton of your resources, just is not going to do anything, and that would have given Mind a big advantage in that matchup.
Let's not forget the Mind went for a fast third CC. He had the late Academy. He didn't have as many scans as he would have normally to scout this had he gone for a faster Academy. He didn't have that many units in general, so his move across the map definitely felt a little bit forced because he just didn't know what was going on. He scanned, he saw a few Dragoons with that later scan, of course, and he was like, you're doing something weird, I'm probably just going to go pressure you and attack you, but he didn't realize that weird thing was the carrier tech, unfortunately.
Yep. Well, we are going to head out to a quick commercial break, so we'll be back in just 2.5 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Tonight will change our lives. It's so good to be